and welcome back to the Lords of Loud. We're just four music fans living in Australia who love a bit of a debate about music. We thought we'd move our email discussions and rants into the podcast era. I'm Lord Ben, King of the Lords, and Beatles tragic prog rock fan, and I'm your host. And as always, I have with me Brett, Lord Brett, who has the perfect hair for any podcast. I have with me Lord Al. He's a living anachronism, a man who loves Seal and Slayer.
That's the both of them.
And of course, we have Lord Kev, and it's not really his accent that makes him hard to understand. I hope you've enjoyed our other episodes, and I think we'll get straight into it today. We don't need to explain who we are, because we really are nobodies. So today's topic is most underrated bands of all time. Now, obviously, that's the Beatles, but I've excluded them from this conversation for the sake of fairness. So,
very gracious.
I think we'll just move on with other bands that we feel were grossly underrated.
Or can we just have artists generally?
Artists generally.
I don't mean, painting
Jackson Pollock.
That's right.
Very underrated.
Next will be Mondrian.
That's a different podcast, Al.
Mondrian, of course. Yeah, you love him.
Yep.
That's the extent of our art knowledge. Back to music.
So, Kev, do you have something
I'm not
you
going to
can
lead
lead
off
off
for this one. As usual, I've got a conceptual problem with this, so I'm going to let someone else jump in who's definitely got something they want to say.
Okay.
Brett.
Okay.
Brett, do you have one?
Just flying with lipstick. Devo.
Devo?
Okay.
Really?
I think.
Well, I'm interesting to hear the case on this one.
I think Devo were, now,
One Hit Wonders? Yeah, they were. You're right.
No, but I think they were that commercial success of electro-pop. Right? Mainstream electro-pop. I think they were right at the front of it. And they...
So you're trying to tell me that they were the commercial arm of Kraftwerk?
Yeah. That you go out and you talk to people that don't know who Kraftwerk is. They know one song of Devo. But in the end, I think
there's at least two songs.
They were successful at bringing electro pop to the mainstream, but wouldn't be recognised for it because they wore funny hats. They all wore jumpsuits. But I just think they.
I think there's a case there for do funny outfits completely undermine any credibility?
Yeah.
I mean.
Split
Ends are the other band that jumped to mind. You ever see them and you can't really get over the cartoon outfits.
Very underrated band.
But I think
is that the line that we're drawing here? Is it the funny outfits?
Well, that's it. What do you call underrated? For me, it is a band that you feel had all the skill set. Had amazing songs, great lyrics, great performers, had a great whatever. Like you love them, but just when you see these lists of top 50, top 100, whatever Rolling Stone list, they just never appear on that list. Like that's for me, that's sort of the criteria. It's like, how do these guys never get mentioned in these different in the same breath as some other artists? Who you might feel that they were better than even, or at least contemporaries with, or whatever.
Yeah. So Ben, here's a question for you, because I know you love your meatloaf and your
let's save that for the guilty pleasure.
Okay. But I guess what I'm saying is there's a kind of a
not that there's anything guilty about meatloaf.
Or pleasurable.
Yeah, that's right. It shouldn't even in that category at all.
But there might be a category where it's like a kind of a credibility gap, where artists are perceived to be in some way kind of like too theatrical, or what I mean? It gets in the way. Like meat.
But for some reason, there's a reason that for whatever, critics don't take certain bands seriously. And so they never appear in these, and on the opposite spectrum, there's these bands that just always appear in these lists, like the Talking Heads and bands like that, where you just go, okay, good band, but were they better than some of the other art pop bands at the time? Like, there's those other bands which they just get a default pass to some of these like best of lists and that as well.
Well, we touched on this the other night when we were chatting. It's about that luck thing, right? Like, so Talking Heads break through. And they do, out of that whole scene and blah blah blah, and I don't think they're over applauded. I would suggest that they're underrated as well. For like in that sort of algorithm of where they're at.
So what?
I would have thought there would be more about Talking Heads on your lists and things like that than I see, but that's just my perception. I don't know.
But you're right, because if you think about it, bands that have that theatrical aspect is your Split Ends. Talking Heads definitely like that. I mean, Devo will like that. I mean, the problem is they appeared somewhat foolish.
Yeah.
It didn't appear artistic, which is what sort of Talking Heads managed to do. That hang on, this looks like it's deeper or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. Split Ends, with the funny theatrical makeup sort of made it, and the garish clothing made them look a little bit stupid rather than maybe Talking Heads who looked a bit weird.
I think that's it. I think it takes certain critics to say, "Oh, this is art and this is just buffoonery," and then all of a sudden, you're labelled as that, and it's very hard to come back from that sort of thing. Then it's like, it's not cool to like this band anymore. And then all of a sudden they fall off the map.
You have to wonder why some artists choose to do that. Is it a deliberate, challenge to, like Frank Zappa asked, does humour belong in music? And it's a very interesting question, because you can, it's a divisive technique. You can lose people. You know what I mean? Just because of the way you look.
Absolutely.
And especially if you're trying to be quirky and all that.
What makes someone like Bowie cool when he dresses up, and other artists not cool when they decide to dress up?
Yeah. No one ever.
Who decides? That's cool. That's not cool. There's just
the cool police.
The cool police.
Who are the cool police?
I don't know. I think it was David Bowie at the time. He was his own policeman.
I think you've been arrested several times right now.
He's got fear of standing
the cool
warrants,
police.
that's for sure.
The cool police have my fingerprints.
That's right.
All over
That's
them.
right. I mean, Ash to Ashes. In that film clip, he's wearing that clown suit, and I mean.
But it was black and white, so you could tell it was art.
Oh, of course. But who would dare suggest that he looks stupid? Who would dare suggest that David Bowie in that thing looks stupid? Whereas
My kids.
Well, yeah.
But I think you're right. I think you get to a point, though, in your career where it doesn't matter what you do, people are going to go, "Oh, that was art. That was because it was Bowie." Look at the Let's Dance film clip. I mean, it's horrific, but people love it.
Yeah.
And critics go, "Oh, great," I mean, good song, but. I think you can get to a certain point and it's like, it doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be amazing. Whereas the complete opposite happens for people. It doesn't matter, if you've been labelled a bit of a dork and a bit of a, on the opposite side of the spectrum, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what cool stuff you come out with.
Yeah, maybe.
You're never going to be in that cool crowd of, your Bowies and your Talking Heads and whatever.
So Lou Reed should fall into that
cool category.
Cool category. But what was the album he did with the metal band?
Oh, yeah, wasn't it Metallica? He did it with
Metallica.
He did a record with Metallica.
And they reckon it's unlistenable.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it. So
that's unlistenable.
Yeah, but
Lou Reed's a classic
Metallica's been unlistenable.
Tried to listen to it.
Lou Reed is a classic example, though. Once you have that cred from Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he does from that point
locked
on.
in,
Because he's such a sort of dark figure who, it wouldn't matter what he put out, people are going, "Oh, yeah, no, it's edgy. It's edgy. Oh, it's Lou Reed. Oh, it's good."
Yeah, but people used to think that about Rolf Harris.
So he brought edgy back.
Let's not go there.
One wrong move, and look at his record career. I reckon
let's not go there.
It's like late career edginess, He just didn't need to bring.
Well, because the Velvet Underground always appears on those underrated lists, right? Because they weren't very successful, but very influential, right?
Yeah, but were they influential? Like, I love the Velvet Underground, but I think they had their moment in time, and I think certainly they were influential on certain bands, but I think you've got to dig deep now for people to say, "Oh yeah, no, my music, Velvet Underground, whatever." Like, I don't know, great music. But how I don't think they're underrated. I think they're perfectly applauded for what they did at the time. I wouldn't think they're overrated or underrated.
No one heard of them in their time. In their time, they were completely unknown. They just
in that sect,
absolutely.
They were in that.
Figures show that in the first few years of their albums, hundreds of people max bought those records.
Sure.
And it was an experience that it went into the subculture and just influenced hundreds and hundreds of bands. I don't think there's any denying that. But those weren't the bands that went on to become Aerosmith. And went on to sell out stadiums.
That's
but
right.
They have a long, long-lasting influence because they changed the way that people wrote records. and it was the bands that sort of went underground and tried to stay there, you know, and the underground stayed underground music until, you know, sort of your sort of alternative crossover sometime in the 90s.
Isn't it the issue too that we were discussing before, it's about a moment in time, that of course any band that was underrated back in the 60s is going to become more and more invisible over the years, you know. You would hard to think that someone would, you know, it's like Big Star, you know, hard to think that many people would know about them, but you go back into the 70s and you talk to people and they're raving about them and what an underrated band and big influences and that sort of thing. Surely for some people it's a matter of, well, they were of their time, but time has moved on, so how do you know? I mean, let's not go into it, but isn't that the biggest argument about the Beatles, that over time people forget all the great things they did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because time moves on and we forget how revolutionary it was to put lyrics on your album cover, because everyone does them. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's right.
And what's an album?
I mean, I love Mick Jagger as a singer, but I mean, I can't remember anything he's done. I loved him in Help and all that stuff.
Help,
don't get me wrong.
That's good, yeah. That's good, Kev. So,
Al,
anyway, that's the end of
Nick
Kev's
Kelly as well.
tenure on Lords of Loud.
What's he?
Al, did you have
I've crossed the line here. I've done something.
That's right, yeah.
We did say at the beginning of Underrated we weren't going to say the Beatles, right?
We're not saying the Beatles.
Okay.
Or just everything.
Right.
We're moving on.
I break the law. So, Al, did you have a...
There are a few. The one that comes to mind, my sister would be very happy with, Duran Duran. But
I'd come with you on that.
Only the first couple of albums. From my point of view, they were incredible, especially the bass player. And the guitarist and the drummer, just phenomenal musicians.
Yeah. You're saying everyone but Simon Le Bon.
Well, Simon Le Bon and the keyboardist, I mean, you know, he didn't have the strongest voice.
Yeah.
But, you know, he did his job perfectly.
Someone's got to be there to pull, so, you know.
Yeah. And the keyboardist, the funny thing is, like, I watched, I think it was the making of Rio, their second album, and the keyboardist was hilarious. Because all the stories start off with like, I just put my finger on, you know, this key and I had an arpeggiator going and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah.
That's like, yes, that is all you were doing. It's just like, and then leave it up.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I
you know,
I like the late stuff as well.
Well, he knew how to blend it in with the whole band. So, I mean, they were, like at the time, they were big, but then soon after, it's just like, these guys are a joke.
See, I'm going to surprise you here. I'm going to support this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mainly because I think you're onto something. I think that Duran Duran were completely underrated musically.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing about them
It was just about sex appeal,
about pop, about being new romantics, about getting commercial viability. And they certainly did that. And in amongst all of that, any musical credibility kind of went away, you know. And they didn't put out a lot of shit singles at the beginning. They really didn't. No. And the bass player is phenomenal. I don't know who's behind writing most of the songs. I don't know if it's John Taylor or whatever, but there's just like an incredible 80s percussive thing going on with a lot of the things they do. Songs like Planet Earth, like early ones, really atmospheric and brilliant. I mean, I don't even think Simon Le Bon's that bad of a singer. I think that
he's a great singer.
I think it's an interesting take on the underrated thing, is that they had this massive commercial success, but they were never rated as a musical kind of force.
And aside from their
you don't
own
see those records
artistic, really, the production on those records is incredible.
Yeah.
Beautiful 80s production.
Yeah, especially for a debut album.
Like, crisp, beautiful production on those albums. Like, it's such they had like a very unique sound. They were the start of that 80s sort of highly polished, highly produced sort of, you know,
by the time they put out Reflex or something, I remember the first time I heard that, and it was just like coming out the speakers, like you'd hear every
it was incredible,
tiny
talk about your high fidelity, like it was that sort of, that was what that they sort of really created that sound, and then every band after that was doing that, and that, you know,
there was a lot of shiny,
like your hair metal bands started doing that highly polished you know, sound as well, like that they really.
But while we're in there in the 80s, and I'll just throw Ultravox into the same you know, underrated kind of thing. I think they got labelled as this incredibly art house, new romantic thing. But if you listen to what they're doing on their records, weirdly enough, I have been recently, they're just like the godfathers of techno, of dance music. It's just this incredible kind of experimentation with, you know, sounds, different guitar sounds, violins, you know, and rhythms and percussion and all that. Like, but over and above all of that, it's like the birth of this electronic music, not just synth music, but you can hear the start of techno. And It's
going back to Kraftwerk, they built off that legacy as well. Like that was sort of part of that. And Devo, but Ultravox, I'd agree with you as well. But underrated as a band. Did you have one, Kev, apart from Ultravox that you just mentioned? Did you have another one?
I can't think of a single other band in the entire history of music that's under. No, I mean, obviously, a lot of the music I like, I would say, is underrated because lots of people don't get to hear it. Right. I don't know.
Under-listened.
Because I'm almost to the point where I'm really evil about this, so when a band gets really popular, I just have to let them go because other folk like them. So that, you know, and then that's just like twisted, right? There's something wrong with me.
Sadistic, that's like
yeah. It's like lots of other people like them now, so they don't need me getting involved.
That's sold out. That was
I don't get it. Yeah.
That's like hipster level wankishness from you.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
But selling out, there was that big.
Like as soon as anyone else knows about this band, I can
Yeah. I'm not accusing them of selling out. I'm saying I'm the sellout. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not following you to a stadium. God's sake, $400 to see Smashing Pumpkins. Christ. I'll see you in a shed where everyone thinks you're rubbish and leave. You know?
I'll be your best supporter.
Yeah, and the Pixies really had that that transitional thing. They were one of the first bands that came out of the underground to kind of start selling stadiums and things. They weren't shy of saying they wanted to be there, but it was a bit like that kind of broke them, and that made me happy because like I got to keep them for myself.
Yeah.
You know,
wallowing in their misery.
Is that wrong?
Yeah. You know? Yeah, you're praying they don't make too much money. That's right.
I don't know.
So I knew you'd come back, bitches.
I don't know what's wrong with me. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. And they when they started to write records that were for those venues, they didn't sound like the same band that I loved.
No, that's it. Yeah.
But again, enormously influential. I don't think underrated. I think there's enough, you know, acknowledgement of
you just
their
the Pixies now.
Yeah.
But again, that's another episode of, you know, when a great band goes bad because of success, right? And there's too many stories of angry young men doing really well on the backs of being angry, and then suddenly find themselves middle-aged and, you know, on yachts and not being angry anymore, and suddenly their career tanks.
You lose the hunger. You don't have that hunger anymore.
What do you sing about now? When
how's someone going to relate to it?
Exactly. Yeah. Because at some point you're not a street fighting man anymore.
I'm going to paint my yacht again.
Yeah.
That's right.
Feel my woe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. You're bathing in champagne and. I could run out of Moe again. Better go write another song.
That's right.
Isn't there a famous story? There is a famous story, but Led Zeppelin touring in the UK and basically losing the entire audience sometime later in their career because Robert Plant started complaining about the tax. That was, you know, he couldn't let it go. He started going on about, it's ridiculous how much millions I have to give away every year. And all these little metalheads are like, yeah,
not so much.
All right, man, that must be a pain in the ass. You know, and so that's very true because your issues aren't everyone's issues anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about you, Ben?
Same thing. His issues aren't anyone else.
Ben can't relate to us anyway. You know, he's on his yacht at the moment. He's paying it in.
I'm going, why am I even here? Well, it might surprise you, Al, but I've thought about this over the years. Most underrated bands. I've got a list, but let's just start at the top of my list. Is always Supertramp.
Okay.
A band. Exactly.
I'll be saying that a lot for the next 5 minutes.
Incredible musicians put out some incredible material, had some commercial success, but
didn't they have a lot of commercial success?
They had a lot of commercial success, but when you again, you see these lists of best whatever bands of all time or top 1,000 people from the Rolling Stone, whatever. They're never in these things. They're never mentioned in these lists ever.
Yeah.
It's like they've done something to piss off all media, so they never get coverage. And they had some massive hits and great songs, like really good songs and really good albums, especially their early work. I don't understand.
Don't get it.
Well, my issue with Supertramp, right? And again, I'm maybe I got this wrong.
Brett's going to explain to you why they're.
This is why.
That's right.
This is why.
Well, I'm looking for answers.
So I've done the research. No. My understanding, and it could be wrong, they were funded to get started. Some,
they were
multi-millionaire.
But how does
said,
that deny their?
Well, where's the pain? I mean, there's not pain. Where
there was a millionaire
living in share houses eating cockroaches.
Sure, but do you think? But has that permeated through their careers? No. You're saying that's the reason?
No, I'm just thinking.
Like it wasn't like they. But I know. But you're right, and that could be the reason. And if that's the reason,
at some level, some sort of cultural.
Petty. That's pretty petty.
We're getting at the idea that there's a reason why a band's underrated. It's almost like that though. It's almost like what is it? Why are they not quite? And if it's just a little sense of they always had a leg up, those guys. You know what I mean? Like it just permeates and kind of.
Sure, but they didn't go down the road of Duran Duran where they got caught in the teeny bopper. All I remember about Simon Le Bon was he preferred red underpants over blue because that's what my sister told me that she read in Dolly.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So they were reduced to that. But Supertramp weren't reduced to that. They avoided all that teeny bopper stuff because their music wasn't for teeny boppers.
That's right. Well, they started off as a prog rock band, which is why I love. I personally love a lot of their early work. I love all their work, but I love the early work even better. But it wasn't that, here's a producer who goes, right, I'm just going to, it wasn't like Spice Girls style, where I'm just going to grab, these people and make a band. There was I can't think of his name off the top of my head now, but basically one of the keyboardists and songwriters was a friend of this millionaire.
Right.
And he was like, I'd love to, wanted to pursue his music. And this guy said, well, I'll fund you to go and put a band together, whatever. And he brought in Roger Hodgson and all the other members of the band. Davies, what's his name? Davies. Sorry, I can't remember his first name. But so he went and put a band together. Basically, he funded the initial sort of putting together of the band. But then it was their talent alone that took them. Like this guy, this millionaire wasn't buying songs from from songwriters and whatever to put. It wasn't like
Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, exactly. Like they went through on their own merit after that. Like yes, he put some funds in so that they had the luxury of let's get together and go for it.
But was it the kiss of death?
That's right. Well, but that
commercially, they did well. Maybe it was as people.
But they just didn't seem to be able to get the critical acclaim, or whatever for whatever reason they just not ever mention in docos and in these lists and things like that. You never see them come up, and it's a shame.
So that's number one. So you've got
it. How long's this list?
You've got a few.
The next one's even more criminal. Well, it's not more criminal. Like
this is Gary Glitter.
The Small Faces. The Small Faces is probably. They're probably the third greatest band behind the Beatles and the Who of the 60s, and just don't get the acclaim. Steve Marriott, lead singer, one of the greatest lead singers of all time, especially in that 60s sound.
That's why I love them.
Had some big hits.
Never had any
great songs. Ronnie Lane. Yeah. Great band, and then they just did again. They don't pop up in these lists of. No. Influential bands from the 60s. You have your Who, the Kinks, Stones, like all these bands come out. Yeah. They're never mentioned in that.
See, they have this thing in the UK when they talk about the establishment. And the establishment is Elton John, Eric Clapton. It's just you break through something and you're almost like royalty in its own right. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Somehow, the Stones are part of that without being part of it. Definitely the Beatles are their ultimate establishment. And then for some reason, Small Faces are always just, I don't know, too working class.
Yep.
I don't know, they didn't quite get on the colour TV screen quite as much. You know what I mean? They didn't break through into the sort of end of the 60s and early 70s to sort of last long enough to ride out and become, one of the classic bands people talk about. But I agree, they're just phenomenal records they put out.
Another possibility is that
pause.
Dramatic pause. If you look at people compiling the list now of the greatest bands of all time, whatever. Just as a thought, perhaps the age of those people means that, because if you were alive at the time and super keen on music at the time, you were probably in your 20s or whatever, in the 60s, early 70s. So, by now you could be retired or close to retirement in your music journalism career. So maybe if you've got younger people who are in their 30s or something writing these, they're going, well, I've got to look at what, is either popular that I've heard about, with my muso friends, or that I've read somewhere else, because I don't know.
Yeah,
I wasn't alive then.
I think you've touched on something, and
so you end up just...
Yeah. And
aren't you gradually?
And you're also
aren't you suggesting that therefore the PR people behind certain bands always gets them through?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just
and then they lose a bunch of others.
We just gradually whittle away all the ones that.
The old stages always exist, they're always there.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that if you pick up a copy of Rolling Stone from 1991, the top 100 albums of all time will include Smells Like Teen Spirit and, the first Oasis album, whatever, and God forbid they would be anywhere near that, 15 years from now. But you'll also have you'll have a few Beatles and Stones albums right up at the top that have been there since they first started doing these lists, and will always kind of be there because you couldn't almost write that list without them. So are you going back and do you have the time and the capacity really to make an argument that says Ogden's Not Gonna Flake is a better album than I don't know, Be Here Now? How do you?
Yeah. Well, you also, for the record, for our listeners.
Well, of course it is. But if you're putting that magazine out in 1996.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
It just doesn't make sense.
And look, there's a. Sorry, I'll let you. I'll let you finish. I'm going to let you finish. But Beyonce should have.
Thanks, Kanye.
But there is that fact of just trying to sell, magazines, or trying to get hits on a website. You want it to be a little bit controversial. You want to appease the current generation by putting a couple of their artists in there. You want to sort of make it but there's also this sort of self-fulfilling sort of perpetuating thing where you go, okay, well, Dylan's always got to be in this, Beatles have always got to be in these lists. Sort of, if these people have grown up on, okay, well, here's the standard top 10 of artists, then we've got to just put them in, and then we'll see what else we can find to sort of put in there alongside them. So it becomes this sort of self-fulfilling thing.
Well, especially I think what you said when you said you've got to appease your current audience as well, in that each year there will be artists, or in each decade, to say, well, we're going to have somebody, quite a few bands from the past 10 years. We can't just fill it chock full of people from the past. So when you're looking at it's like, okay, we've only got 50 spaces here. If we do 10 from each decade or something, we're going to have to.
Yeah, you're going to put Adele. You're going to put Coldplay. You're going to put,
and you're just going to have
a big impact in the last sort of 15, 20 years. Radio.
And when you go further back, it's just like, well, we've only got 10 spaces left. We're going to have to go with the really well-known ones.
That's it.
I think that's fake news, Al. No, because isn't it at the end of the day that as time passes, it's just a case of, well, no, this was an influential band.
Oh, yeah.
And these guys' influence, it hasn't permeated through the years. There's another argument saying
it's not so much influences whether they were good, like the topic underrated. So if they fall off the list, I guess it's saying, well, we don't rate their musicianship as much as these other bands, and that's fine because you got to make a cut somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's Oh, I think definitely some will keep on going through because it were they're outstanding.
They were largely influential rather than for a little bit they influenced this tiny movement which petered out 2 years later or something like that. Isn't the whole thing about Small Faces there a little bit like Big Star that through a series of issues they just couldn't get to that next level, and then it all sort of collapsed at some point when they became the Faces.
They did. They certainly had some inner band issues and the like, but they actually had hits. Tin Soldier, Ichiku Park. They're actually big hits now that when you pick up a '60s compilation, it'll have Ichiku Park on it, or it'll have some of their other one of their other songs on it. But they still don't get mentioned in, whereas Big Star, it's hard to find them on a greatest hits of the whatever, or some soundtrack. You'll find them on some soundtracks and whatever, but you don't see them when someone's going, oh, here's the top 50 tracks of the 70s or whatever, 80s. You're not seeing them there, whereas usually in a 60s compilation you will see a couple, if not one or two tracks from the Small Faces. Or
so here's a question for you, Kev. Because Big Star can never tour again, if they suddenly became popular, would you get turned off them? Because there's no way you could actually support them.
I don't want to be completely, crazy about this. They're a very interesting case for me as well, because I would never have heard of them if it hadn't been for another band that I love, like being explicitly ripping them off and saying this is our major influence, wearing their t-shirts, telling people this is who they love.
Who was that?
That was Teenage Fan Club.
Okay,
right.
And this just became a thing. I mean, they openly supported Alex Chilton and played with him and all that kind of stuff. And this is a guy that battled depression and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of reached out a bit, I guess. But I don't know whether they're responsible for any rejuvenation in his career. But I certainly got to see Big Star in Glasgow sometime in the student era, and they were great, but they were all 60s guys, but man, they could play. You know what I mean? And it was alternative music of a type. It didn't sound like commercial, it didn't sound like it would have broken through commercially. It was a bit edgy, a bit kind of heartfelt, but kind of it wasn't put me on the radio stuff at all. So again, underrated, I don't know. Massively influential bands that I like, am I grateful to have heard about them? Totally. Do I want everyone else to know about them? No.
Underrated and proud.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go off that. I'm saying like an arse.
So here's my final one.
Yep.
Right. It's controversial.
Stones. Yeah. All right. Stones.
Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think he's sexy?
And what's really interesting is is that I think as far as his career went, and he's critical claiming that he actually screwed the pooch. So
literally.
Exactly. At some point, or just look at his hairstyle. At some point, he made some interesting song choice decisions.
He went all out for commercial success.
Yeah. And then burnt everything he did. From the early 70s, because he did some really interesting stuff. And the interesting thing is that I think he stopped writing music at some point too. In the early 70s.
That's when he lost it.
Early 70s, he wrote some awesome songs.
But that's that losing that hunger thing as well.
Just wanted to play soccer or something.
Yeah.
For a man,
I would say I would counter that with I think on the balance of his career, I think he had a lot of success. I mean, everyone knows the name Rod Stewart. I don't think you can say he's underrated on the balance of his career. I think what you're really trying to say is that,
like Supertramp.
Yeah, I'm trying. No, but he gets mentioned at least Rod Stewart gets mentioned in these lists and things. Like, I think what you're trying to say is he probably didn't live up to his potential.
No.
Because he had that skill set.
Yeah.
And he did write some great music, and his first few albums are really, really good stuff.
My mum liked his later stuff. So maybe that was his true potential.
You know,
catering to mum's.
He should have always gone to Al's mum. That he should have turned there straight away.
Yeah, I got a great recording of Downtown Train by Tom Waits.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've heard
You
that.
hear that song, it's just
Yeah.
it's a great record, you know. And
Well, maybe that's another guy.
Tom Waits.
well, I thought about that when I was thinking about that, and yeah, again, he falls into that category of. I think he influenced plenty of people, but he's such an iconoclast that really it'd be hard to, you know, just go, okay, I'm gonna do a Tom Waits thing. You know what I mean? But there's plenty of people, you know, cite him as an influence, perhaps his artistry and all that.
And a great songwriter, and
I don't think he's underrated.
It's sort of a acquired taste, his delivery, but great artist.
Yeah.
But again, not. Yeah. I think he's got what he would want out of it. Like, he's got that sort of cult following. He's got that sort of, the influence.
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't think he would want to break into that next level of sort of fame.
But it's almost like he chose this delivery or whatever approach, and it didn't it wasn't extremely popular. And maybe you'd say the same thing as Split Enz. Split Enz said, "Oh, let's put makeup on and wear funny clothes."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it got you known. But after a while, people just think you're a bit freaky.
Well, I think Split Enz is a different case, and I think we save that for the next episode of Underrated, because that's a whole other topic, and that's the next on my list. So I think we'll leave it there. But that's we'll definitely revisit this, because there's plenty of bands that over the years just probably haven't got the recognition that they deserve. So
our goal is to give it to them.
That's right.
And
give them the recognition
right here, and then ruin
famous,
it on this table.
If we make them famous and Kev hates them, then we've done our
All
job.
better.
We've done our job.
All right. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode of Lords of Loud.